The PS4 launched in November of 2013, and many of the games made for it were quite good. But you're not here for that. You're here for some real bottom-of-the-barrel crap. We're talking games so bad they look like they were released several console generations before the PS4. Games with such terrible mechanics they've got no business charging anybody money to play them. And games that simulate a task hereto underutilized in gaming, namely tapping jars. Strap in because we're headed straight to the bottom of the dredge pile. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 8 terrible PS4 games you won't believe exist. Number 8. Duck Dynasty, the game. I know what you're thinking, if only there was a video game that recreated the lives of the Robertson family, the stars of Duck Dynasty. Wait, there is? And you're telling me that you get to not only use a whistle to simulate duck calls while your friend shoots them, but also visit a shooting range and shoot at bottles yourself? 10 out of 10. Goaty. Duck Dynasty, the game, is as bad as it sounds. Muddy, horrible textures, character models that verge on hair-raisingly terrifying, and a barren, lifeless open world where you walk around doing next to nothing, all combined to make a truly dire experience. At its core, Duck Dynasty tries to be a racing game, a rhythm game, and a shooter, which might be interesting if it managed to do any of them well at all, which it does not. It's also an advert for Duck Dynasty masquerading as a game, and even cheekily reminds you to buy the Season 5 DVD on the title screen. It's hard to wonder why this game ever existed in the first place. Even the most hardcore of Duck Dynasty fans probably wouldn't want anything like this in gaming form, and it's baffling how the game's publishers, Activision no less, let this one get off the ground. Number 7. Alins Gun. Okay, so what if you took everything about the Hitman reboot and then, wait for it, then made it terrible? Then you'd have Alins Gun. Like Hitman, Alins will have you dress up in costumes and sneak around and kill people in stealthy fashion. Unlike Hitman though, everything about it from the AI to the actual performance of the game is complete tosh. On paper, it sounds like it could be alright. You're in the Cold War where you play as a KGB operative now defected to work for the CIA. That's about all the good we can say because it's time we talked about just how awful the enemy AI is. If you wander out of their line of sight, they'll pretty much forget you exist instantly. Trying to get away, just close a door in their face and they'll just wander off and go about their day. Your own abilities aren't much better. You can assassinate enemies, but half the time it won't work. The enemy AI won't realize this and just stare at you. Then there's the bugs. A lot of bugs. You can get stuck in bookshelves, sink into the ground like quicksand, find yourself suddenly staring at an elevator wall without a wall. Then what game would be complete without regular complete lockups forcing a reboot? Thankfully though, there's these really engaging static cutscenes with just walls of text and no voiceover that really improve things. Number 6. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. While everyone will recognize the name Tony Hawk and its association with gaming, probably for good reasons, it comes as even more of a surprise that this absolute ball of trash came from the same franchise. This was meant to be Tony Hawk back to basics, gone with the crazy antics of later games in the series in favor of a pared-back approach to the series, delivering a game more akin to the original 3 Tony Hawk titles. Unfortunately, despite releasing in 2015, it didn't even play as well as the original titles. It honestly looks so bad it could have released for the PS2, combining muddy drab textures with truly uninspired level design. They even managed to mess up what made the original game so fun, which was combining seamless combos to make some really cool moves. In this one instead you have a slam move, which is mapped to triangle. Unfortunately, so is grind, and the game has a habit of not knowing whether you want to grind or whether you want to slam. This routinely completely throws off your combos. Then there's the physics. The world will routinely work against you, throwing you off your board with reckless abandon for no reason and throwing graphical glitches at you almost constantly. How can you make a skating video game not fun? Well, I mean, I guess this one has all the answers. Can you please release Skate 4 for us now? Number 5. My Name Is Mayo. My Name Is Mayo is truly a quadruple A third-person incredible action-adventure experience. No, it's not. It's a game where you click on a jar of mayonnaise. That's it. There's a jar of mayonnaise and you click on it. Clicking on it reveals increasingly random facts, which are just that. Random. They have nothing in particular to do with the experience. You can dress up your mayo jar in various cosmetics ranging from balls of wool to guitars, but doing this does absolutely nothing. You'll just still be clicking away at that jar. It's another game that's designed to be absolutely substanceless, made to encourage lots of purchases due to curiosity about A, why is it so cheap, and B, belief that there surely must be more to it than they're letting on. It's also bought by a lot of people, probably because it's a really easy platinum to achieve. receive. You just click on the jar a whole bunch of times and the trophy is yours. Whether you want to spend 99 cents to do that is between you and your god. Number 4, Skylight Free Range 2 Gashtween. Looking straight like it's been ported from the PS1, Skylight Free Range 2 is an absolute joke that probably should never have been allowed on the PS4 store in the first place. It's billed as an open-world RPG that takes place in Nova Scotia in 2048, which sounds super interesting, but you can tell from just a glance that it does not look good, and it doesn't play any better. Nothing makes sense at all. It's ugly and uninspired with laughable graphics, and then there's the combat system, which takes inspiration from Final Fantasy's ATB fights, ruins it completely, and unbalances every fight to make them next to impossible. This is a game that was far, far beyond the scope of its indie development team, and it shows. Despite its truly terrible nature, this is one of the games that you might feel tempted to check out just because you wonder how could it be that bad, and you may regret that, but again, your god, do what you want. Number 3, Life of Black Tiger. If you looked at Life of Black Tiger's promotional art, it doesn't look that bad. Then when you look at the game, you realize the phrase "never judge a game by its cover" is very appropriate. You'll really want to check out the trailer for this one to really understand what we're talking about, so we'll roll some good B-roll for you. It's really something. Life of Black Tiger truly looks like a really, really bad PS1 game. The eponymous Black Tiger moves terribly, the enemies move terribly, the world is poorly rendered, blood splatters appear with reckless abandon and without any logic, and you appear to be able to attack crocodiles. Amazingly, this one was actually an iOS and Android game that was already really bad on those platforms, and Sony for some reason was like, hey, let's port it again and bring it over to PSN and sell it. If you want to know how poor the game is, despite looking like the finest of PS1 titles, it struggles on some maps to achieve 20 FPS, even when running it through the PS4 Pro. It's free on the App Store and Google Play Store, assuming it's still available, but why wouldn't you want to give up your hard-earned cash for such a stellar gaming experience? Number 2, Wonder. What would you get if you stripped an MMO of all its progression systems and combat? What sounds like kind of a cool idea for a second, and then you realize there's a reason MMOs don't do that. It's Wonder. Released in 2015, Wonder is designed to strip back the MMO as we know it and places gamers in an open world to explore with no combat abilities whatsoever. The game's basically all about exploration. Think of the vanilla release of No Man's Sky, where there were things to see, but hardly anything to do with them. Wonder is notorious for being negatively review bombed upon release, as it was full of incredibly nasty game-breaking bugs, as well as there being very little gameplay to speak of. Now, you could kind of put this in the walking simulator category, but that would sort of be doing a disservice to that category, as there isn't really any story here either. Everything is told through vague lore stones, and outside of your character occasionally shapeshifting from a tree into a weird humanoid, that's about the only meat the game has to offer. At least it's got lovely music, shame about the rest of it though. Number 1, The Quiet Man. The Quiet Man, despite its name, which is not that exciting, is actually a really intriguing concept. Basically, you play as a deaf man, so there's absolutely no audio in the game whatsoever. Unfortunately, this means the story is basically impossible to understand, and it portrays a deaf person as being entirely unconnected to the world around them, when in reality, deaf people can still go on to live their lives through sign language and lip reading. It's even a relatively large budget affair, with the bulk of it being actual live action scenes, briefly broken up by some uninspired combat sequences. Given the lack of sound, the plot is baffling, and there's no particular reason for this to be the case. Why is the protagonist able to basically smash in people's faces with what seems to be Batman-esque kung fu? Nobody knows. The developers have since caved to pressure and added a new Game Plus mode which restores audio, but this both means you have to play through without audio originally in the same poorly implemented portrayal of deaf people, and then entirely ruin the concept of the game when you play it through a second time. This one was even published by Square Enix and promoted heavily at E3, but I guess anybody can release a dud.